We carry the sum of human knowledge and instant global communication right in our pockets. We have high-speed 5G networks blanketing our cities. Yet, if you look around any crowded subway car today, you'll find a quiet epidemic of isolation. We are deeply networked, but entirely alone. Financial resources were tight, but look at the contrasting metric. Community connection and overall happiness were remarkably high. Technology back then was heavy, slow, and expensive. Personal communication meant carrying a brick-like mobile phone with a tiny monochrome screen and a physical keypad, if you were lucky enough to own one. You certainly couldn't scroll through a social feed on it. For most people, making a long-distance call to family required leaving the house. You walked down the street and stood in line under the bright yellow sign of a local STD PCO booth. Reaching the outside world meant physically rubbing elbows with your neighbors. We remember this era as a golden period, despite the scarcity and the lack of digital shortcuts. That happiness wasn't found in what people owned, but in how their physical environment forced them to constantly share their time with one another. Before the internet, the neighborhood street served as the primary high-speed network for human interaction. It was the absolute center of gravity for youth culture and daily play. The machines that populated these streets reflected a slower pace of life. Heavy, durable cars dominated the roads, characterized by the unmistakable bulbous frame of the Hindustan Ambassador. Then there was the Maruti 800. This compact box of a car defined middle-class mobility. It represented the guarantee of a shared experience, cramming 4 or 5 family members inside for the long drive to a grandmother's house. Because cars were slower and fewer, children completely claimed the dirt shoulders and narrow lanes. Notice the intense, locked-in focus required for a game of conche, or marbles. These kids are occupying the exact same physical space, eyes fixed on a tiny glass sphere in the dust. They invented games out of literal trash. Kids would scavenge colorful matchbox covers, the ones printed with pictures of the Taj Mahal or classic film stars, and cut them up to create custom, makeshift decks of playing cards. When a game depends on 3 boys squatting over glass marbles in the dust, there are no programmed rules to settle a disagreement. You argued over boundaries, you made deals to keep the game going, and you learned how to cooperate, because the alternative was going home to an empty room. These streets were the original peer-to-peer network, powered by friction and handshakes rather than algorithms. Moving indoors, the environment was entirely dictated by the cost of electronics. A television set, especially a black and white model, was a major household investment, usually controlled by the adults on ordinary days. That scarcity created the phenomenon of communal viewing. If you had the TV, your house belonged to the neighborhood. Dozens of kids would routine snil into a single living room, sitting shoulder to shoulder on the floor. The programming itself synchronized the community. On Sunday mornings, the theme songs of mythological epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, or the superhero antics of Shaktiman, echoed simultaneously out of every open window on the block. The stakes peaked during an India-Pakistan cricket match. The neighborhood men would take over the television, packing into the room to share the collective anxiety of every single delivery and the explosive joy of every wicket. Daily domestic life outside of that screen was profoundly manual and physically demanding. Chores required heavy, blunt force tools, perfectly embodied by the sheer, unyielding weight of a coal-fired clothes iron pressing a family's wardrobe. Because the labor was heavy and the entertainment was rare, you couldn't retreat into a private bubble. Having only one screen per block forced people to invite their neighbors inside, transforming geographic proximity into a trusted family unit. Outside the home, the local bazaar served as the main intersection of human life. It was a loud, chaotic strip where commercial logistics collided directly with pedestrian traffic. Navigating this density required reliable, utilitarian transport. The copper-colored Bajaj Chetak scooter offered exactly that, a rugged workhorse that allowed everyday people to cut through the noise of the market. At the edges of this chaos stood the street food vendors. Operating without the influence of modern, globalized fast food chains, these carts anchored the community beneath faded orange umbrellas. The local diet was highly specific. Children saved up for 50 paisa ice pops, mobile phone-shaped jelly, and sweet cigarettes, while adults lingered over fresh golgappe, spicy chaat, and cutting chai. The shopkeepers themselves provided the daily entertainment. They would hang handwritten signs warning against asking for credit, joking that loans would only be given to 80-year-olds accompanied by their parents. The bazaar functioned as a physical, social timeline. Buying your daily vegetables meant simultaneously checking in on your neighbors, sharing the latest gossip, and reinforcing the bedrock of local trust. The breakdown of these physical networks happened gradually. The arrival of multiplex cinemas, massive cable TV packages, and eventually personal computers and 2G internet slowly pulled us off the streets and into the quiet comfort of our bedrooms. Childhood itself absorbed the impact of this shift. The tactile, shared experience of huddling together over a chalk slate has largely been replaced by solitary digital engagement. Looking back at the year 2000, we aren't actually grieving the loss of cassette tapes or dial-up internet tones. We are mourning the loss of the unannounced visit. We miss the friction of bumping into someone we know on a daily walk. We cannot abandon the incredible conveniences of the modern world, but we must recognize that shared physical space is a fundamental human nutrient, and our current environment is starving us of it. You hold the power to reintroduce that nutrient. Step outside today. Go buy a snack from a vendor on your street. Call a friend and meet them in person. You can choose right now to bring that neighborly magic back into the physical world.